We did everything right. I made the plan. I thought about everyone, my family in Ghana and the one here in Japan. I sacrificed. I brought my own mother across the world so that my family, on both sides, could have a better life, and it still fell apart. This is my story, and I'm not here to sugarcoat it. I'm the second born in my family. 5 siblings. We didn't grow up with much. My parents worked hard, but money was always tight, and somewhere along the way, I became the one holding things together back home. When I got a good paying, stable job, I stepped into that role fully. Things became even harder when our dad passed. I had to step up, paying school fees for my younger siblings, covering their upkeep, doing everything I could to make sure they had a shot at a better future. My mom did menial jobs, but what she earned wasn't enough, so I supplemented whatever she brought in. That was just my reality, but I accepted it because I believed that if my siblings completed school, they would get good jobs, take care of my mom, and eventually, everyone could have a comfortable life. In 2019, I moved to Japan to join my husband, who had studied there and was building a career for himself. I was excited, genuinely excited. I saw it as an opportunity to be with the love of my life and also a chance to earn more and support my family back home even better. My husband and I sat down and mapped out how we could take care of both our families. We didn't have much, but we were determined. We put away any form of luxury living. That's how we started life here. A year in, after doing menial jobs, I began postgraduate school. I was slowly figuring out my career path in this country. And then, fortunately or unfortunately, I got pregnant in my final year, right after I'd already accepted a job offer. That was a hard blow. I was terrified it would derail everything I'd worked for, and in many ways, it did come at a cost. Distance from family support, disruption to my career, and the very real challenge of raising a child far from home without a support system around me. Childbirth reorganizes your entire life. I had a 4-month-old, a husband whose salary was already fully stretched, covering our household and both families back in Ghana, and a career I desperately needed to return to. We sat down again and made another plan. His income covers everything here. Mine, once I went back to work, would go toward supporting both families back home. Siblings' education, their living costs, support for my aging mother. That was the agreement. But to go back to work, I needed childcare. And childcare here had a long waiting list. And even when a spot came through, it was expensive for a child that young. There was no family nearby to help, so I came up with what felt like the perfect solution. I would bring my mother. She would come on a designated visa to help care for my child, and we would give her a monthly allowance. She'd have income, she'd spend time with her grandchild, and I could return to work and keep everything running as planned. And honestly, because my dad had passed, I hated the idea of her being alone in that house. Her menial jobs back home wasn't earning her much more than what we would give her as an allowance anyway. And with us covering everything she needed at home, she wouldn't even need to spend it. It felt like it solved so many things at once. I was so proud of that plan. We explained everything to her clearly. She understood. She was excited to be coming abroad. And when she arrived, it was wonderful. She was hands-on with the baby. She was present, she was loving. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I could breathe, like everything was going to be okay. But there was something I didn't know yet. something she hadn't told me before she got on that plane. My mother had always believed that investing in education was a mistake, at least beyond one child. In her mind, I had gone to university, and that was enough. The rest of my siblings should find work. And more than anything, she believed that all the money I was sending home should be going toward one thing: building her dream house. Not school fees. A house. Never mind that she already had a place of her own. A building she and my dad had started together, one that my husband and I had helped make livable. In her heart, she had a dream house in mind, and she felt I was the one who should build it for her. She never said this clearly before she came. But slowly, in comments and quiet pressure, it came out. She made it known she didn't approve of what I was doing with my money. She thought I was wasting it on my siblings' education. And that tension, right there in my home in Japan, was one I was not prepared to manage on top of everything else. But I kept paying the fees. Because I know what education does. I've seen it, I lived it, and I wasn't going to stop because someone disagreed with me, even if that someone was my mother. Then things took a turn I really didn't see coming. In her free time, and she had plenty of it, my mother was constantly on the phone with a friend of hers who lived and worked in the United States. This friend was out there working, earning her own money, living her own life, while also helping with her grandchildren. And the more my mother talked to her, the more she started wanting that for herself. One day, she came to me and said she wanted to move to America. I had to explain, as gently as I could, that that simply wasn't possible. There was no pathway, no plan, no way to make it happen. She accepted that, but then she came back with a different request. "Okay," she said, "then find me work here, in Japan. I want to earn my own money." And I understood where she was coming from. I genuinely did. Nobody wants to feel like they're just waiting around, dependent, invisible. But the visa didn't allow it. And more than that, this wasn't the arrangement. She had come to take care of my child. That was the agreement we had all made together. We couldn't find a middle ground. And we weren't willing to break any rules. So, she asked to go back home. To go back to her petty trading. My eyes started to fill up with tears. I was broken. The tears finally rolled down. My child was 1 year and a few months old, not yet in daycare. The admission season had already passed. I remember asking myself over and over, am I going to have to give up my career? Am I going to have to stay home? We immediately called the city hall, explained our situation, submitted an application, and waited. In the meantime, we booked my mother's return flight. 3 weeks out. It was expensive, very expensive. And I remember the day she left. I stood there with my baby on my hip, watching her go, thinking, okay, what do I do now? We put my son in paid daily daycare while we waited for his proper admission to come through. And I had to let go of the full-time position I had been working toward. I took a part-time job close to home, something flexible enough that I could do the school runs, pick my son up, be there the way I needed to be, with no one else to rely on. My husband worked an hour and a half away, leaving early and coming home late. He helped on the days he could work from home, but those days were few. I struggled, more than I let on to most people. And then everything else started unraveling too. Without a full income, I couldn't send money home the way I used to. My siblings, the ones whose fees I'd been covering, I couldn't keep up with that anymore. Not because I stopped caring, but because the money simply wasn't there. I encouraged them to take on menial jobs to support themselves while I figured things out. That broke my heart in its own quiet way. And my relationship with my mother? It hasn't been the same. There's a distance now that I struggle to put into words. I love her. She's my mother. But something cracked, and I don't know yet if it can be fully repaired. I can't live her dreams for her. I wish with everything in me that she gets all her heart desires. But I couldn't give her that at the cost of my own family stability. Here's the thing that keeps me up at night. If she had held on. If she had just stayed and honored the plan we made together, even for 2 years, or 3, I would have been working full-time. I would have had a real salary coming in. And with that, I could have supported her properly. I could have kept paying my siblings' fees. And eventually, maybe all of us, my siblings and I together, could have pooled our resources and built her that house when the time was right for everyone. But by leaving early, she lost the support. My siblings lost the support, and I lost the career momentum I had spent years trying to build. Both sides lost, and that is the part that is so hard to accept. I'm not telling this story to paint my mother as a villain. She is not a villain. She is a woman who saw a bigger world and wanted something for herself. I understand that more than she probably knows. But I needed her. My child needed her. And the plan we had made together, if we had both honored it, could have given all of us so much more in the long run. Instead, I'm here, still figuring it out. Working part-time when I know I am capable of so much more. Carrying responsibilities I can no longer fully meet. Missing the version of this story where things went differently, but I'm still standing. I'm still showing up for my child every single day. And I have to keep believing that things will turn around because they have to. If you've ever carried your family on your back and still somehow ended up with less than when you started, I see you. This is more common than people admit, and I just wanted someone out there to know they are not alone. Thank you for listening to my story. This has been Far From Your Roots. What's your root story? If you want to share or know someone whose story deserves to be told, send to farfromyourroots@gmail.com. It will mean a lot to me if you like, comment, share, and subscribe. Until next story, remember, your roots don't disappear. They just learn to grow in new soil.